12 men walked with Jesus of Nazareth. After his crucifixion, tradition says almost all of them died for their faith to be beheaded, crucified, skinned alive, shot with arrows. Only one is said to have died of old age. But here's the catch. The Bible only records one apostle's death in detail. Everything else we know comes from early church writers, legends, and centuries of Christian tradition. Some of it reliable, some of it almost certainly embellished. So today, we're separating scripture from legend, and walking through how each of the 12 is said to have met their end, the one the Bible confirms. Let's start with the only apostle whose death is actually recorded in the New Testament, James, son of Zebedee. The book of Acts says King Herod Agrippa I had him executed by the sword around 44 AD, making him the first apostle martyred. That's it, no elaborate legend needed. It's right there in scripture. The Rock, Peter. Then there's Peter, the apostle Jesus called the Rock. Early Christian writers, including Tertullian and Origen, say Peter was crucified in Rome under Emperor Nero. Sometime in the mid-60s AD, the famous detail that Peter asked to be crucified upside down because he felt unworthy to die the same way as Jesus comes from a later text called the Acts of Peter. It's a powerful story, but historians can't verify it actually happened that way. The brother, Andrew, Peter's brother, Andrew, is said to have preached around the Black Sea and in Greece. Tradition holds he was crucified in the city of Patras on an X-shaped cross, which is why that shape is now called a St. Andrew's cross, and why it appears on flags like Scotland's, the other James. Next is James, son of Alphaeus, sometimes called James the Less. Accounts differ. Some say he was stoned to death. Others say he was thrown from the top of the Jerusalem temple and then beaten. The details vary depending on the source, which tells you how murky the record gets past the apostles the Bible mentions by name. The skeptic, Thomas. Thomas, famous for doubting the resurrection until he touched Jesus' wounds, is said to have traveled all the way to India. Christian communities in Kerala still trace their roots to him today. Tradition says he was killed with a spear near Chennai, at a site now called St. Thomas Mount. Philip is traditionally said to have been crucified. Some accounts say upside down. Others say hung by his ankles in the city of Hierapolis, in modern-day Turkey. Bartholomew, sometimes identified with a disciple named Nathaniel, has one of the grimmest traditions attached to him, flayed alive, and then beheaded, reportedly in Armenia. It's why, in Renaissance art, he's often shown holding his own skin. Michelangelo even painted him that way in the Sistine Chapel. Matthew, the tax collector turned gospel writer, has conflicting traditions. Some say he died peacefully, others say he was martyred in Ethiopia or Persia. There's no strong consensus. Simon the Zealot is said, in later tradition, to have traveled and preached in Persia, often alongside the apostle Jude. Legend holds he was killed there. Some accounts say sawed in half. As with several of these stories, this comes from medieval martyrologies written long after the fact, so take it with a grain of salt. Jude Thaddeus is traditionally paired with Simon on that same mission to Persia. Legend says he was martyred there too, struck down with an axe or club. He later became known as the patron saint of lost causes, a title that has nothing to do with how he died, and everything to do with how later Christians remembered him. Matthias, the replacement. After Judas's betrayal and death, the remaining 11 chose a replacement, Matthias. The book of Acts describes his selection by casting lots, but his death isn't recorded in scripture. Later tradition places his martyrdom either in Jerusalem, by stoning, or far off, in what's now Georgia, in the Caucasus. Judas, the betrayer. Then there's Judas Iscariot, whose death actually gets 2 different accounts in the New Testament itself. Matthew's Gospel says he hanged himself in remorse after betraying Jesus. The book of Acts describes him falling in a field and dying from the fall. Scholars have debated for centuries how to reconcile the 2 versions. Some think they describe the same event from different angles. Others see them as separate traditions that developed in the early church. John, the one who didn't die a martyr. That leaves John, son of Zebedee, and brother of James. Tradition holds he's the only apostle who wasn't martyred. Early accounts say he was exiled to the island of Patmos, where he's traditionally credited with writing the book of Revelation, and that he later died of natural causes in Ephesus, at an old age, possibly into his 90s. So out of 12 men, tradition says 11 died violently for what they believed, and 1 lived to see old age. But it's worth remembering, most of these stories weren't written down until decades, sometimes centuries after the events they describe. They come from church tradition, apocryphal texts, and the writings of early historians like Eusebius, not eyewitness records. What we're left with isn't a perfect historical record. It's a testament to how powerful these stories became to the communities that told them, and how far people were willing to go for a belief that started with 12 ordinary men. If you want a deep dive on any one of these apostles, Peter, Thomas, in India, or the Judas mystery, let me know in the comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more.